Good morning, everyone. So, as you can see, I'm not at home today. Can you tell where I am? Yes, this is my office at school. And I'm just getting this assembly ready for Wednesday morning. Now, I'm going to read the story, and as I'm reading, you're going to be able to look at pictures from this book. It's from our school library. And you're going to hear the Easter story. Jesus arrived in Jerusalem. The religious leaders frowned. "It's that preacher from Galilee," they muttered. "He claims to be telling people about God, but he's just a troublemaker, and a dangerous one at that." Then things seemed to go quiet. Jesus spent his days preaching, like always. He asked his disciples to make arrangements for them all to share a special meal. They met in an upstairs room. Jesus stood up, took off his coat, and tied a towel around his waist. Then he fetched a bowl of water and began washing his disciples' feet, just as a servant would at the time. "I'm your teacher and your leader," he explained, "but I have acted as your servant. I want you to follow my example and serve each other. Tonight I'm giving you a new commandment. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." Jesus went on to explain that God was going to make a new promise to his people. He said that his body was going to be broken and his blood was going to be shed. Yet because of his suffering, his followers would be able to enter into the kingdom of God. At the end of the evening, Jesus and his disciples left Jerusalem to find shelter for the night. They walked across the valley to an olive grove. Once they were deep in the shadows, Jesus gathered them together. "You wait here," he said. "I want to be alone to pray." As he disappeared into the darkness, one of the disciples noticed something. "Judas isn't here." "He slipped out earlier," replied one. "I think it was something to do with money," replied another. "He'll know where to find us, in the usual place. We might as well try to grab some sleep." They were barely awake when Judas returned. He was leading a large crowd of armed men. Judas had betrayed Jesus to his enemies, and they were coming to arrest him. Jesus was taken to a great council of priests and teachers of the law. "The things you have been preaching to others are dangerous," they accused him. "They go against our beliefs and our traditions. Your teaching is a crime." Even though they couldn't find any proof, the religious leaders were determined to get rid of Jesus. In the morning, they led him to the Roman governor of Jerusalem, Pontius Pilate. "This man claims to be a king," they told him. Pilate was not convinced. He decided to appeal to the crowd outside his palace. "Shall I set this man free?" The crowd that was waiting was in an angry mood. "Crucify him," they shouted. And Pilate agreed. The Roman soldiers jeered at their prisoner. "Call yourself a king?" they jeered. They draped a cloak around him as if he were the emperor, and they pressed a crown of sharp thorns on his head. Then they hit him until he was worn out by their violence. When they'd had fun, they loaded a wooden cross onto Jesus' shoulders and forced him to carry it up the hill which lay just outside the city walls. There they nailed Jesus to the cross and raised it into position on the hilltop. 2 criminals were crucified on either side, but Jesus just said a prayer. "Forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing." As he hung there, the sky turned dark and the air grew cold. A sorrowful little procession of Jesus' friends gathered. They carried his body to Joseph's rock-cut tomb. Gently, they laid it on a ledge in the dark cave before hurrying to roll the huge stone door in place. They had no time for the usual funeral customs. The sun was nearly setting, and the red sky was a reminder that the Sabbath day of rest was just about to begin. Very early on the Sunday morning, the group of women who'd been at Jesus' burial went back to the tomb. They wanted to wrap the body in the proper traditional way, with sweet-smelling spices among the folds of linen. To their dismay, they found that the stone door was rolled away. Cautiously, they stepped inside. "The body isn't here," one of them whispered. "I remember exactly where they put it." Then they saw two figures in shining clothes who were standing there in the dim light. "Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive?" they asked. "Jesus isn't here. He has been raised to life." The women hurried away to tell their astonishing news to the disciples. "The body has gone," they explained. "We don't know where Jesus' body is." The one named Mary persuaded two of them, Peter and John, to go and see for themselves. John ran faster and reached the tomb first, but Peter came racing up behind and went straight in. It was just as they'd been told. The body had gone. All that was left was the linen wrappings. The two men stepped outside into the dawn light. As the sky paled from grey to pearl, hope rose in their hearts. Perhaps the news was true. Perhaps Jesus really was alive. Mary stayed by the tomb weeping. As she peered inside, she saw two angels. "Why are you crying?" they asked her. "Someone has taken away the body of Jesus," she said. "I know where they've put him." She turned around as she heard a voice and saw a figure silhouetted against the sky. "Why are you crying?" asked the person. "Who are you looking for?" "It must be the gardener," thought Mary. "Oh, sir," she said, "if you took the body away, please tell me where I can go and find it." "Mary," came the only answer. Then she knew she was looking at Jesus himself. The sun rose, shining gold in the clear blue sky. Mary knew for sure there was good news for all of Jesus' friends and followers. Jesus was alive again, not a king in this world, but the King of heaven itself. The dark power of death was defeated. God's own love lit the world on that Easter morning. So that's the story of Easter. And you'll hear that every year. It's a very difficult story to understand, and maybe you have lots of questions about it. It's great to ask questions about this kind of thing. It shows that you're thinking about it. So you might want to ask your parents, you might want to write your questions down and talk to your teacher or to me when we're back together again. Now we'll have one more assembly before the Easter break. So I will see you again on Friday.